One concrete example of putting values and well-being in the forefront of creating our economic system is a transnational collaboration of well-being economic governments of Iceland, New Zealand, Scotland, Wales, and Finland, aimed at rethinking and redesigning our global economic system, embedding well-being as the core focus of governance, structural justice, and human and ecological integrity. So it is my true honor to welcome here our beloved Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, that led Iceland into this collaboration and is making sure that Iceland is not just in it by the name, but genuinely walking the talk. Katrín has also been one of several world leaders who have successfully steered their countries through the COVID crisis. Katrín, you are most welcome here at the forum, and we are very much looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you, Johanna, for your kind words. And good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be with you here today to speak on leadership and governance for well-being. Well-being to be well, to feel peace and harmony within. We can feel this on our own, and also when we share it with someone else, a loved one, a family member, a friend, or even a stranger. This feeling of well-being is something we strive for in our everyday lives, and that includes in our workplaces. And this is even more important when we are in managing positions and are responsible for others. And although it sometimes seems that politics evolve around something else than well-being, politicians and policymakers can make decisions that have big influences on people's lives and welfare. For instance, in Iceland, the decision to extend parental leave in order to give both parents equal opportunity to care for their children is a good example of a political decision which increases the well-being of families for young children. The life of a politician can be trying. We do like to complain a lot about how everyone picks on us and hates us. But I have a story that I'd like to share that is very dear to my heart about the life of a politician. I was getting groceries at my local grocery store when a transgender person came up to me with tears in her eyes and told me that she would like to thank me. She told me that the new law we had just put in place on gender autonomy had completely turned around her life and circumstances. And suddenly she was not the only one with tears in her eyes. There are those moments where we are reminded of that we must never lose our focus on the humanity and well-being factor in decision-making. But as Johanna said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the well-being economy. For those not familiar with the concept, it is the idea that the success of a nation is better defined by the quality of life of its citizens, the people, and not only the growth rate of a country's GDP. It centers the well-being agenda in economic, social, and environmental policymaking. In short, you could say that well-being is a collective term for factors used to assess the quality of life of the population. In 2018, my government, together with Scotland and New Zealand, took part in establishing a collaboration of smaller states on the well-being economy, or WEGO, which is well-being economy governments. And the cooperation is informal in that it is based primarily on sharing experience and practice through regular communication and workshops where different topics are addressed with an emphasis on well-being. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the theme of 5 workshops focusing on, among other things, labor market issues and the future, mental and physical well-being, and the response by governments. In the latest workshop, held this morning, the focus was on how we can better integrate the environment into the well-being ideology. A topic that I think is extremely important right now. Meeting emission targets and reaching a net zero future means rapid structural change, impacting all aspects of our economy and everyday lives. We must not only ensure that we meet our commitments on climate change, but also that in doing so, we ensure a just transition as we reduce our emissions and respond to a changing climate. That means ensuring a fair transition that leaves no one behind and creates a better future for everyone, regardless of where they live, what they do, and who they are. In recent years, nations' interest in well-being has been steadily increasing, and international organizations like the OECD have undertaken changes to its structure to give greater attention to well-being. The WeGo partnership has exceeded expectations, and 2 more countries, Finland and Wales, have now been added to the group. Canada is also following the collaboration closely and has participated in the group's workshops. With all this cooperation set in motion, how do we figure out what people think of as quality of life? What is it that gives our life a special meaning and happiness? What gives us well-being, and how can us, who are working inside the political system, work on exactly that? My government examined these questions, which have been prominent in international discussion of well-being, prosperity and social progress. I appointed a committee on well-being, including elected representatives and specialists in various relevant fields. And in 2019, we commissioned a public opinion poll asking people what factors were of greatest importance for their own quality of life. The results showed that the public considers good health and access to healthcare to be the most important thing for their own quality of life. And this was before the pandemic. And we know that this issue has become more relevant to people in the last year and a half. Health was followed by relationship, meaning relationship with friends, family, neighbors and colleagues. Housing, meaning secure housing, housing costs, supply of housing and prosperity. And then came prosperity, meaning income, assets and financial security. What we have now done is that we have published indicators for 39 social, environmental and economic indicators considered to be indicative of prosperity and quality of life in Iceland. The measures take into account the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, are based on official statistics and are comparable with those of other countries. And in 2019, 6 well-being priorities were used as a basis for drafting the Icelandic government's 5-year fiscal strategy and annual budget. These well-being priorities are intended to serve as a framework for the government's prioritization and future vision. Number 1 is mental health. There is growing concern about mental health problems in Iceland, not least among younger people. We must address this problem by increasing access to a wide range of mental health services, as well as improving prevention measures. It's also important to improve work-life balance and encourage social activities which contribute to better mental outcomes. Number 2 is secure housing. Adequate housing is a basic individual need, and the cost of housing is often the largest item in a household's expenses. We have been increasing the supply of social housing and also working on proposals for a more efficient rental market and actions for first-time buyers. Number 3 is education. Education is important for both people's quality of life and the nation's prosperity. Number 4 would be zero carbon emissions. The greatest threat facing the world is the climate crisis and its consequences. The Icelandic government has set a goal of reaching carbon neutrality in Iceland no later than 2040. This target must be pursued firmly through wide-reaching actions. Number 5 is innovation growth. Innovation and sustainable development is the key to a strong and more diverse economy, resulting in a better quality of life for people. And the last priority, number 6, is better communication with the public. Iceland has lagged behind its neighbors in digital services to the public, even though its electronic communications infrastructure ranks with the best. However, the COVID pandemic has been a real accelerator in developing good communication with the public, which I think is one of the key factors why Iceland has been doing well in the fight against the pandemic. It is because of a good communication, and the public has been extremely well informed. Dear friends, in conclusion, it is my steadfast view that the well-being economy and its wide-ranging values, where people's all-around needs are made central, should be our guiding light into a more equal and sustainable future. I do hope we see more nations get on board to this way of thinking about prosperity. We need not look far back to see how the values of the well-being economy have proved themselves. Throughout the trying times of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that a society cannot function, let alone thrive, if its citizens are not well and don't have a good quality of life. And not just some of them, but all of them. I wish you a good conference, and thank you so much.